gonna start the recording.
Okay.
And we'll let people join as they, well, I'll have people join as they join. So thank you for doing the roundtable. Lisa is actually going to be moving us along. So you can, Lisa's going to make sure that nobody monopolizes the time and turns it into a commercial for anybody. So.
Bob. Yeah, exactly.
So do we have any other vendors on? Or is it just me? Well, no, I'm sorry, Bob. Because we kind of tag team, right? You have our print rental program.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And then somebody from Texas Book is supposed to be joining us, but he hasn't here yet. So, but that would be it. I
Having
believe.
some weather issues.
Who isn't having weather issues?
It's nasty here.
Yeah, I just talked to or got a text message from our guy in North Carolina. They got 60-mile-an-hour winds and he's got no power and no internet.
Mm.
See, that's the problem, right? With everything being online is you're at the mercy of the internet company.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm apologizing for the squeaking in the background. Sorry.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they decided they wanted to play.
Yeah. Oh, I just got an email from Brendan who would like to join us. So does anyone have any course materials questions or concerns?
Any Pearson issues? Have we charged anybody tax on this call?
Me.
Is anyone looking to outsource books, textbooks?
Nope.
What'd you say, Jim?
Keeping it in-house, keeping it in-house for now.
I was surprised to see that Rick outsourced. Well, sort of surprised.
Yeah,
That
I wasn't really. They cut his staff so bad that he really, you know, he just didn't have enough bodies to cover it, and he makes so much on his GM that it was just too cumbersome. And when Rodney retired, they were going to do the work.
Right.
Jim should have went over there and helped.
Oh, well, we got the RFP, but it was just bad timing with Michael, because we got it originally when Michael was coming on board.
Really? You
So
got the RFP.
if it was a year later, because I was cussing Rick out this past summer when he made the choice to go with Academos, because I literally reached out to him and he's like, I literally just made sign with Academos last week, because just with our NetSuite system, we could have easily managed their textbooks for them as well. So
Well, contracts aren't forever.
I know, that's what I told them.
But it's
I've seen
amazing
quite a
what
few
happens when you. Oh, go ahead,
Go
Lisa.
ahead.
I was
No,
just going to
I've
say.
seen quite a. You go.
I was going to
Go ahead.
say, it's hard to change a contract when the world collapses around you, though. So sometimes it's
The
easier to go
comfort
with
zone.
what you got. Yeah.
Once you're in a comfort zone, then it's very hard to to make changes, especially with the market shrinking as much as it is so quickly. If you can have somebody else deal with all those changes, I understand why. I understand why.
Yeah, because this past fall, we had to be very inventive on how we manage, taking in orders and how we process them, because we closed down our textbook section for this past fall, and we really pushed online orders with the option to pick up in store, but at the same time, our occupancy was limited to, we have a 22,000 square foot store. we were limited to like 100 customers in the store at a time. So we were lucky weather-wise because we ended up setting up a pod outside on our plaza and a couple of tents where we moved all of our pickup in store out to that outside location, and then we managed scheduling. We scheduled people for like basically 5-minute windows to pick up their orders, and we used MS Bookings to do that, and it actually worked out really well. We won't have the same option to do outside for the spring semester.
Oh, why not?
Well, you know, it gets a little cold. So we're hoping to use the MS Bookings and keep everything inside because spring's always a little bit lighter than fall anyways. And out at our temps for fall, we never really had a backup when it comes to too many people in the line. So I think we'll be able to do social distancing fairly easily within the main store for the spring semester. So
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, I've heard from a lot of stores where they're doing a lot of in-store, curbside pickup, a lot of digital delivery. It kind of forced everybody quickly to move to digital. And our print rental program, people are going either with the rental or the ebooks now. It just kind of hit everybody on the head.
Yeah.
Being that I'm from Pearson and I really can't speak about the other publishers, and I've lost my contacts with some of them since Lydia and I used to do these together and she quit. Is there anything that I can help anybody with? Any questions? I mean, I've been sitting on these meetings all week and it's pretty much the same thing, the unknown. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I know with a lot of schools are closing down for Thanksgiving and they're not going back till February. So
that's what we're doing.
Have you come
And
up with a buyback?
Was that for me, Radha?
It's for actually anybody. Because our students do go home at Thanksgiving, but they need to bring their books with them because they're on their finals are going to be all online during the first week of December. So
I can give you a little bit of insight on the small area that I cover. I have 9 states. And it's getting bigger every month from the sounds of things. In all 9 states at this point, I have 1 store that is going to do a traditional buyback, and that's in northern Michigan. All the rest have canceled their regular traditional buyback and are opting to do small, almost a daily buy, so that they're there, and if somebody does bring in books, they can sell them. And then they just contact me at the end of the guide period and send me the list. I send them a check and, they ship them out. So, but there is only 1 in 9 states that is actually doing it.
I'm doing it too, Bob.
Up at Colby College. Now, he's a little different. You have to understand. He's going to try and do it all, and he's killing it. But he's the second one because Colby handled the COVID thing better than just about anybody else that I've seen out there, because the students are all there. And because the students are all there, it makes sense to do a buyback. That's the driving force in every buyback that I know of is, are the students here? Will they need their textbooks for 2 weeks online only, or will they be able to sell them in November? Or, exactly, if you don't have the students there and if you don't have the books there, you're not going to have a buyback. Colby, on the other hand, is far enough north and far enough away from people that they were able to handle it, and things are going great there. I got to be honest with you, Greg's been doing a hell of a job getting that going and making it happen. And to answer your question, Greg, yeah, we're gonna make it work.
Well, we still have finals off campus though. That's the one caveat. So,
Oh, they are still having they're leaving, but they're having finals off campus.
yeah.
Oh.
That's why I was trying to temper your enthusiasm in the email. I don't think I did it well enough. I started
That sounds about
advertising.
right, Greg.
Yeah, I started advertising like immediately this morning, so they can hopefully pull some books, but they can't leave campus between now and the end. So unless their parents ship things to them, I don't think this one's going to be big. I think the promise of having one again in the spring is going to be more helpful. But we're going to try to capture some of the pent up demand from last semester, hopefully.
When exactly will your students be leaving campus?
They're leaving the last day of that buyback. So what is it, November 24th?
Okay.
And then they have a couple days to relax, and then they have a week of remote finals. So, yeah, sorry, it's not all you thought it was.
Well, hey, you're trying, and that's pretty much what everybody's doing. I mean, I know I see all these names on the screen. I know several of you, but quite honestly, I miss seeing your smiling faces. Yeah, it's what everybody's facing. It's very difficult to know, and the books are out there. Students are walking around with them, or they have them at home, and they probably would be just as happy to get rid of them if they could. But it's difficult. There are online buybacks available by all the companies, they can do that, but they're hesitant to have to put it in an envelope and ship it in and wait for their money, where they could just walk up to a table and get cash. And that's the crux of the situation. We're going to see in January how things shake out. And if the students are on campus and there's face-to-face learning and they're going to be on campus during book rush, then it would make some sense to have some opening buys. But we're pretty much hoping everything for May, because I'm not sure there's going to be a whole lot of on-campus stuff going on in January. And I may be wrong. I hope I am, but it doesn't look good at this point.
Judging from what I've seen with the students, they're going to be home.
Yeah.
Yeah, our students actually aren't due back until February 20th.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, February 20th, and commencement is June 20th or 19th, whatever that Sunday is. So,
Yeah, they took away the spring break, right? That's.
yep.
Mhm.
So I heard yesterday, somebody from New York told me that some of the SUNY schools are testing the kids for COVID now, and if they have it, they're not letting them leave campus. Did anybody hear that?
I think we have a couple of SUNY people on.
Yeah, I believe Sammy is.
Yeah, I'm from SUNY Morrisville. Can you hear me okay?
I can't hear her.
Yeah, just a faint mumble in the background.
Can you hear me now?
Oh.
Can you hear me now? No?
Barely.
So Bob, is your warehouse empty? Like...
Pretty much. Yeah, I wish I could sit here and say, oh man, you got to order from us, man. We got all kinds of books and whatever, but we ain't got any more than we had before. Contacting everybody to, if they're buying books and they have some store stock, they have some, some stuff they want to turn over at the end of the guide period or whatever. Yeah, let me know. I'll send you a check and labels. I mean, it's, we're begging for books. We're kicking over every rock we can find to get them. We're going to have some decent inventory for opening, but it's not going to be at the levels it used to be. And it's going to be more spread out. It won't be a big slug of inventory that everybody can order from and then it drops off. It's going to be building slow for weeks at a time. So if you want listing, just do it as many times as you possibly can. Hey, Sammy.
There's Sammy.
Can you guys hear me now?
But yeah, the inventory.
Oh, a little bit louder, but not great.
So what's SUNY doing there, Sammy?
Oh, that's worse.
First,
Yeah.
let me sign out and sign back in. I'm sorry, you guys.
And Lisa, we have two of you for some reason.
I know, and I was trying to figure that out. Maybe it's Kevin.
Oh, okay.
I see, and it's muted, and I see my name, and I'm thinking, how did I do that? Did
It's
I-
me, I'm sorry. I
Oh,
just
that's
popped
okay.
in for a minute.
Good, Kevin. Any
There is-
thoughts that you could share with this group on course materials? Kevin,
God, that's so broad, Lise. Nice question. What are we looking for about, I mean,
well, they were,
rental, digital, used, new, what are we focused on?
We were actually just talking about buyback.
I find buyback to be an interesting topic, especially in this time. I mean, I know Pearson, we only deal in new and digital, but I'm finding it interesting on how stores are doing so many different things when it comes to buyback, that some are quarantining books, some aren't. Some are doing online buyback, some are going to do curbside buyback. I also saw there was an article recently about libraries and how libraries are running short on books because they're quarantining things when it comes back from students. So it's a struggle, and I don't know how that's all going to work out, but every school seems to be doing something different.
see, I knew he would have some good input.
Yeah.
Well, I have input. I don't know if it's good.
Kevin remembers the
Sammy's
things
trying
I
to come
can't.
back again. Oh.
So one thing that might be helpful, Sammy, I just found this out the other day. If you click on your volume down in your taskbar, there's a thing below it that says mixer. Zoom actually has a separate volume. Sometimes that can be lower than your system volume.
How do I sound now?
There you
Ooh,
go.
There we go.
Oh, we can hear you.
Perfect.
So just to give a quick update on SUNY, so we are in fact testing students before they go home, and they have to test positive or test negative before they leave campus. So
So which SUNY are you at?
SUNY Morrisville.
Yeah, because my girlfriend's son goes to Binghamton, and that's where I heard that they were not letting them off campus if they're positive.
Mhm. And right now we're trying to plan very quickly to take into account a quarantine period for any students that do test positive to try to get them home before Thanksgiving, even if they do have to quarantine.
Interesting. So at least they're trying
one
to
of the
keep it contained.
Can I ask a question of the stores? What are your plans for, because we hear across the country, a lot of campuses are going to close down at Thanksgiving, sending students home, just as what Sammy mentioned. But finals are going to be either before Thanksgiving, some are going to be after Thanksgiving. What are you doing about course materials, especially rentals and things like that, buyback, if the students are going home and doing finals at home? Because obviously they need their books, but on the other hand, they're not going to be on campus. And I know rental returns were a struggle.
We ended up shipping a lot of labels to people last semester. I think we're planning on doing the same thing this semester. I set up an account with stamps.com and I media mail price. We're in Maine, so I media mail priced from Beverly Hills because I knew that zip code, like a chemistry book. And I kind of use that as my benchmark. And honestly, most of the labels were under $5 if you sent a media mail label. So I was emailing PDFs to them, but only if they requested. I found a lot of the students, I just had books showing up in my mail before I even asked for them, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Yeah,
So are they
so we
paying-
lost about half of them.
And is that the plan then for the upcoming? Yeah,
Yep.
Makes sense.
I
So
still have
is-
27 bucks in my postage account. I can't get a refund. So
So are the students paying the shipping, the return shipping, or you're doing it?
no, our tuition's like $70,000.
Holy.
Yeah.
It's
Remember when it
major
used to be called-
budgeting issue.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare in December because it hit so quick that no one really had the ability to make any plans on rental returns back, because traditionally they'd come around buyback.
Right.
This semester coming up, what we're focusing on, because there's no company out there that has the money to be able to offer, free shipping to every student that's got a rental book out there.
Right.
And the college bookstores don't have the budget for that either. So
Right.
quite honestly, we're focusing on the communication to the students to say, especially when they rent the book, that this is due back by this date. And if we don't have it back, then you're going to be charged, and it probably will be a fee involved. And as long as you're communicating that to them up front when they rent the book, I think there's going to be less pushback from them at the end of the semester saying, how the hell am I going to get my books to you? So far, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that's actually going to be what's going to happen. But every bookstore manager, text manager that I know are really focusing on those emails to remind student, where normally you would send out maybe 3 reminders. They're sending out weekly reminders.
Well, and that communication, I think, is the key component. And that's what we've heard on a lot of calls, is that that communication piece is vital, even if it's over communicating at this point. But I guess, again, the concern is what happens before those students leave. Obviously, they can return, do buyback, whatever at Thanksgiving, but it's those classes that are going to have finals. I mean, that's a kind of a catch-22 for the student. Well, I can hand it back now, but I need it. So it's where do they go? Do they move to digital just for those couple of weeks? And
Is that
might
a
be-
possibility?
I mean, they can
Can
always
students
rent a
actually do
digital
that
book
for-
if it's available. So
Really? I didn't know that. That's an interesting thought. It kills me, but it's an interesting thought.
right. Well, yeah, and that's the catch that we also are faced with. That we obviously, from a publisher standpoint, obviously want to work with digital, but there are those students who need print, and it's what's that fine line to work between.
I love it when you say that. People need print. I might make it to retirement.
Well, I mean, so I was listening, I listened to a lot of Chronicle of Higher Education panels, and they had college presidents who were from rural schools. And they said, look, we've got some students who don't have internet at home. We've sent out buses with hotspots to rural areas where they can at least download the information, and then the bus moves on to the next neighborhood. So they have certain windows. I mean, granted, I am not a senior manager within Pearson at all, so I have no bearing on any of this. But I do see the issue of spots in the country that just don't have internet. And I remember, and I'll always use this as the example, is when I used to cover the Northeast, and I went to a school in central Vermont, and they said, we have no high-speed internet. We live on the side of a mountain. And so I think those are the situations that publishers have to look at it from what's the biggest bang for their buck and where can they get the most revenue generated. And so I understand the need to go to digital, and I do think that's the wave of the future. But I also, from a personal standpoint, I look at this and I look at inner cities, I look at some rural areas, and I look at places such as central Vermont. And it's how are those places going to cope once this becomes even a more digitized world?
Yeah. In my 9 states that I cover, there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of spots that, barely getting a signal for a telephone.
Sure. But when something like this happens, the alternative really, print just doesn't always work either.
And it forces the issue on digital. There's no getting around it.
Right. So again, it's that fine line.
One experience I had that I found rather astounding, we have a lot of international students, and those students didn't actually return to campus for the most part, unless they were here because of travel restrictions.
Right.
But Beijing, China has incredible internet. And I had at least a dozen students that I was chatting with in real time through my keyboard needing textbooks. And there was at least 50% of the time I said, look, this is an ebook. I can email you a code immediately and you can be reading this in 5 minutes. And they freaked out and they were like, I want the physical book. I can't study chemistry from an ebook. And the shipping was on them. I shipped at least, I don't even know how many times I signed, the forms for international stuff. Beijing probably knows me personally, but these kids were paying $60, $70 to get a book shipped there, 3 days,
Right.
because they did not want the digital version at all. And these students from China are not, they're not your typical Chinese students. They're probably from very wealthy families. They could have bought both
Right.
without even the bat of an eye, but they wanted that paper copy and they could not get it in China. And I had to do cartwheels to get it to them. I know Chinese shipping pretty well now. So there's that.
I know who to call if I'm shipping to China.
What's
So I
that?
do think
I know
that's
who
an
to call
interesting.
if we're shipping to
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
But that's also an interesting point, is that The Social Dilemma was, if anybody saw that on Netflix, talks about digital and the digital world and what that's doing to us as a society and community. If you haven't seen it, it's phenomenal. But again, it's on Netflix. But it's interesting to think that we are in such a, our businesses are all digitized. We're doing Zoom calls, we're doing email every day, we're doing social media. And it's like, how are we, if we're not teaching our kids how to use those tools, they're kind of behind. On the other hand, they shouldn't have to be bombarded by a digital world at such young ages. So it's also another conundrum that the society faces.
Well, logistically too, a lot of these students are sporting the thinnest little Apple laptops, and my 50-year-old eyes can't even see what they're doing, but I know they've got 4 or 5 tabs open already. And then
Mhm.
you're additionally cursing them to try to find their textbook through all that mess. And, they got their phone open because they're actually in a Hangouts call doing a study group. They don't own a Kindle because those are not for young people, as it turns out.
Right.
So, and they don't have tablets because those are already obsolete. They've got one $1,500 MacBook in front of them. That's their world. They actually want that paper book next to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nursing students who say they take digital onto campus and then they use print off campus because it's too big and too heavy. But finding stuff in a digital book is a lot easier than if you're in a paper book. From our perspective, we can just do so much more with a digital book as far as doing testing or quizzes or videos or chats. There's so many levels that we can go down if a student is struggling to give them resources for help. So the digital does have a place. And I think, again, it is the future, even though I can say it's here since we're seeing such a digital world. But I do also personally see a place for print. It's just, how do we get that? How do we get that emphasis?
I think if you watch the students that struggle the most, it always comes down to Post-it notes and 5 highlighters. I don't think it ever goes digital when you're really struggling. I think
Well, it's not like paper goes away. It's just,
Yeah, but
you still
I
have
think when
notes.
you're really cramming though, I think that the highlighting still isn't gone from us. They still
Right.
learned on paper, that generation that learned 100% digital isn't here yet. So
Sure.
for the next few years, people are wringing their hair out and using highlighters still, I think.
One
So
of the
I've,
things,
I've got a kid in middle school and a kid in high school, and they're both now, they're online, and it took us a couple of months to get used to it, but they're finally coming around to getting it, and they're doing okay. But there's a lot of parents here that are just, they're up in arms saying my kid was an A student and now they're failing a class because of digital. And it's like, well, it's not because of digital, it's just a different type of learning that they have to figure out how to do it. And you don't have a classroom of peers to be able to ask questions physically or a teacher physically there. But there are opportunities to still ask those questions when you're struggling, and it's figuring out how to utilize those tools. But just a quick funny story. Some of you may remember Jim Panther from many, many years ago when he was here. But Jim always told me, he goes, we're going to become a digital society and digital books are going to take over. And he goes, somebody's going to come out with this great invention called print. So I thought that was funny.
Well, whatever goes around comes around, right?
Yeah. I hear
That's-
bell bombs are coming back.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
One of
Please.
the issues we're facing on our campus is with the push to digital, we have disadvantaged students that can't pay for the digital, and there isn't a
Right.
copy in the library for them to look
Right.
for. So we've got actually 2 committees formed with different roles in this matter to figure out how to help those students get the materials they need, especially if it's not just a book, but a book with tests and quizzes attached and any type of access code. And
Right.
that is one of the things we're facing right now that comes with that. So
Well, but if they couldn't afford digital, they probably couldn't afford a physical book anyway.
no, but a
Library.
physical book
But at
could be
least they'd have it
placed
in
in the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although,
And-
unless it was checked out by somebody else, and then they'd
Well,
still be
if the
studying.
faculty member puts it on reserve, then it's
Oh,
not
I
going
see.
anywhere. You have
I
an
get you
hour
then.
or 2-hour access to it.
Good point.
Yeah. So we have some quiet people on the call. Are there any questions out there from the quiet people?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what Brendan's doing out there and how things are working in Vermont. And other than just around UVM.
Well, Brendan was just telling me he doesn't have internet, or he doesn't know what this internet is that we've been talking about. So
He does
how
have a
are
glo-
things up at Bates?
They're pretty good.
Okay.
There he
Probably,
is.
how's it going? Probably similar to Colby. So we have all of our students on campus. Yeah, they're part of a aggressive testing schedule, but they're also going to leave right before Thanksgiving. So I decided not to deal with any kind of rental books for this quarter because I don't want to deal with getting them back. Since that was such a nightmare in March, April,
You didn't
May,
do anything?
until it kept spiraling. So yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we have definitely a lot more professors using digital materials from the start. So that kind of changes what the physical books look like in the store and what students are buying. I think the professors know me well enough that like I'll ask them questions like, hey, you've listed this OER resource, like, do you want me to stock a couple of print copies? And sometimes they're like, well, no, because like the whole goal is I don't want to have students pay for anything. And I'm like, well, what happens is you list something as digital and then the student comes into the store and they're like, ooh, I want a print copy of that. So I spent a lot of time like coming into this fall, like looking at what professors were using and saying, okay, is there an equivalent print copy just in case we get those handful of students coming in looking for the paper copy. And that seemed to work. We had a number of cases where the students, they knew it's free. They knew that we list all of our print copies as optional, but yeah, they were happy with having the paper to take with them when they left the store.
So Zane, what percentage do you think of students actually come back for that print copy?
Ooh, I have no idea.
It's small though, I would assume,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I mean, especially since I list all of our print copies like that as optional. So if students are looking at any kind of book list or they're coming in to talk about their books, like it's listed as optional and it's usually, I'm then telling them, oh, it's because your professor has made it available online in some format. So either an OpenStax book or something through the library or yeah, a PDF that the professor's just handing out.
That's interesting. I've never thought of anybody actually listing all the print books as optional and you know, making them showing the ones that actually want the book and selling to them and not having to deal with the ones that feel like they're being forced to. So that's got to be changing the customer experience a little bit to the good for you, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, the shift for us is we went to counter service instead of open text stacks. So that was a bit of a change because our store is pretty small. We have a 14 occupancy limit. And so students used to be able to just come in and browse the stacks, and I would go out and ask them, hey, do you need any help? But we moved to counter service behind a counter, and I think the students have been pretty adaptable to that. Like, I think they don't say it all the time, but they appreciate like somebody helping them, because they'll come in and be like, I think I need books for this class. And so I'll lay them all out on the table. I'm like, all right, here's what these cost. Like, do you have any questions? Like, this one is listed as optional. I'll say things like, I think I saw all your classmates buying this last week. So since we're in an accelerated like style of course, like if you just joined the course, you might already be past it. So check with your professor. And I think they appreciate that kind of extra contact.
Well, I can't say enough about that. That's the kind of customer service that the college bookstores and the campus stores actually offer. I think a lot of people in the digital world are taking for granted, because that's the kind of customer service that I see in college bookstores every day. And, you know, someone needs to stand up and say, yeah, that's, you know, they're going to miss that if anything happens to us.
Unless they forget to buy pens and pencils if they're not in the store.
I can give you a quick Vermont update if you all want.
All right.
Yay. So we overhauled a lot of things in the textbook department this past fall semester. The biggest being we rearranged all the shelves to move from course arrangements to author, alphabetical by author's last name. It freed up a lot of shelf space for us, which gave us more room to operate on the lower level where the textbooks are. We didn't allow customers down, and we went super hard on pushing people to order books through our website, and then either having them delivered to their residence hall for free or picking them up outside of the bookstore. And we had maybe about 25% of our customers took advantage of ordering books and having them delivered to the dorms. It was a process, a lot more labor intensive to coordinate where they were on campus, because we had students that were coming to campus and quarantining for testing purposes, then moving to a different location on campus. There was just a lot of fluidity to where students were ending up. So it was very labor intensive, but we kind of refined the process now for next semester, and expect to have, again, most of our books delivered to the students' residence halls when they arrive back on campus. And then for the ones that did shop, we allowed 6 students downstairs at a time to grab books off the shelf, and pretty much it was essentially clerk service. We were there to help them navigate the new arrangement of the books, although 25% of the students didn't even know any difference, so it worked out well for them. And it'll get easier as it goes along. I think we're going to stick with it at least another semester. Had a lot of pushback from the staff about it. It was different for them and how they've always been used to arranging books on the shelves and how spacing them out and everything too. But we thought it was a really important thing to do. And then we ran a lot of kind of promotions to get students to order their books early to give us extra time to process them, because we expected, without the ability for students to come in and buy them off the shelves regularly, we were going to get kind of buried in orders. And we had about 700 orders, maybe one day, sort of at the peak when orders were coming in fastest. But we were prepared enough to handle those within still a day, 2 days at the most. So we worked through it pretty well. We've refined things for next semester. Rentals is still sort of the biggest issue. We had kind of an extended return date for the students when we thought they were coming back in January. Then the university decided to delay classes till the beginning of February. And we can't get Nebraska to push back that return date any further. So the students are going to have to, on their own, either return them to the bookstore before they leave in November, mail them back to us in January, or send them directly back to Nebraska. We're not going to be providing labels for students to get them back. And after we finally got that new date established for the February start for the spring semester, we've been warning everyone, if you're going to rent a late book, you're going to be responsible for getting it back. So you might want to buy it instead, or be prepared to use media mail to send it back. And there hasn't been too much pushback so far. We'll see how it goes when it's actually time for the books to come due.
That's awesome.
Anything else? Melanie, where are you from?
Mel's with me.
Oh.
From PM.
And Kathy?
University of Southern Maine.
And Jen.
Yeah,
Might
I'm
as well-
from USM. I'm just listening in because we have eCampus, but I am involved in supporting them.
Mhm.
We are moving towards what my big push is, hoping that we're going to do more inclusive access because our campus is a ghost town and I feel like we don't have that face-to-face help that we used to have. Whereas I used to be able to help someone place their order.
Right.
Now I can't even get near them. So you can't help them on a shared laptop anymore. So, you know, we're trying to figure out ways to just maybe even reduce the number of books on campus, recognizing that there are some courses that, you know, definitely need actual books. But, you know, these My Math Lab access codes, there's no reason to have anyone touch that. You know, it should just be delivered to everyone at the same time and, you know,
Right.
not have everyone doing those free trials for 14 days and then they run out and we're trying to get away from that kind of stuff. So trying to simplify it for students.
Well, if we could help you, let us know.
Okay.
Kathy, are you the one pushing inclusive access or has anyone come to you about that?
I'm pushing it partly because I like being involved in the books. I mean, when the textbooks were taken away, I was sad, but I also
Very much.
see it as a service to students, especially for things where everyone has to have it. You know, there's no way around having this textbook. And also for some books that are super expensive, you know, if there's a way to save students money and just a way to simplify the whole back and forth of books coming back and forth. This semester we had something different with eCampus because we weren't open for returns or buybacks. You know, the students had to deal with it all themselves. And in the past, we actually helped facilitate that. We would take returns and we would take do the buyback and have an eCampus rep there on campus, as well as doing it ourselves. And so that is all up in the air, you know, and it's not as easy for students to return their books now. They have to deal with it. So, you know, this is one way to avoid all that back and forth. But I'm definitely in favor. You know, there's so many courses where, or at least some of the entry level broad courses where everyone has to have the same thing. And it just would make sense to do inclusive access. I know we've been working with Tom Canali on, you know, setting that up. And now we have to have a contract signed by UMaine System. And sorry, just turning my camera on. So once we get that resolved, I think we'll be able to go forward.
Tom's a good guy. He'll help you.
Yeah, he's been very, very helpful and very patient. We
Mhm.
just started Brightspace as our LMS this fall, so we couldn't get it going because we were just making sure all the courses were running, period.
Right.
Not adding additional vendors at the last minute.
And another part of that is that Pearson, and I'm sure all the companies, all the publishers are, but we're focused on trying to get rid of the cardboard access codes altogether.
Yeah.
We would love to get to a point where we're either integrating through IA or we're working through Red Shelf and Vital Source for stores to just sell it that way, or even go through Oasis. And stores could buy access codes, listings of access codes that way. But sending back and forth, and to your point, students can't even touch a piece of cardboard that's been in the store, or you can't touch a cardboard piece that they are returning back. I mean, sending pieces of cardboard back and forth just doesn't make any sense.
No, that's crazy, really. And then we
It
get the
is.
students, everyone gets the students who rip off the wrong part and then like, oh, that wasn't what I needed. And now I don't
Yep.
need, and then we have to get involved in trying to get a credit for them. It's just a mess.
Yep.
We've been pretty flexible with helping people with that, just in case you need to know. Kevin and I did a test and we both got the access card in the mail and went through the process like the student, and we learned a lot.
Yeah.
Well, but we went through the process to get the print book. So if it's a combo card, again, it's a cardboard card that came to us, and we went through the process of, well, what happens if the student buys a combo card where they're paying for the print up front, And what does that process look like? How many steps does it take? And is it a struggle or is it easy? And, you know, in some ways it was easy, but in some ways it was also difficult. So we're going to be talking about that with our stuff internally.
It always helps when you are the guinea pig and you learn what students have to go through. So, but the nice thing about the way the combo card works at this point is that the store is getting a piece. So if they get the codes and the student, they pay for the code with the print, you still get the piece of the print. I didn't ask if anybody had any furloughs or layoffs in your stores, and what's it looking like when you're doing returns? Are you understaffed?
We're always understaffed, it seems like, but Cornell was lucky that they haven't yet had any layoffs or furloughs, but they did offer an early retirement incentive that we did have some employees that took advantage of that. But if we have any, and we can't replace those positions because Cornell is on a complete hiring freeze. And even if employees take a new job, because we actually had people actually leave Cornell to take a new job during this pandemic, and we can't replace those positions at this time either. So it's hard to open our main store with all the regulations that we have to follow, because we have to count people in, we have to count people out. So we literally have to have a person positioned at the doors, and we can't run our main store just with our full-time employees that we have. But we really had to put a plan in place, and it literally had to go to our VP level to get approved for us to even hire any of our part-time employees back. And that even right now, it's limited. I mean, but there's not a whole heck of a lot going on in the store right now. Probably like everybody else has said, traffic has been way down for us in store because the university also has a visitor policy in place. So if you're not a student, a faculty, or staff with an active Cornell ID, you can't enter any facility on campus. So no parents, no alumni, no potential students. So, but we were lucky because we have our downtown location, which is on campus, where those customers can go to, and we've seen a huge uptick down there because we're limited in our downtown location to 14 customers at a time, and we literally have lines waiting to go in. So, I mean, but it's still the business that we're doing down there is not even a drop in the bucket on the business that we're losing through our main store. So, long answer for your question, Lisa.
I was just curious because nobody had really mentioned it. You know, they were losing staff. On other associations, people are, you know, down to 2 people in a store. So, curious.
And that's a struggle too, Lisa. So I'm on the North Carolina board, and we had a joint meeting with South Carolina yesterday, and we were talking about that. And one woman, her daughter's been sick for years, and she's had to have, I think she had a lung transplant or a liver transplant. She's had a few, and so she's got no system to fight off any illness. And she's like, I got to go into my store. I got to do fulfillment, but it's just her and one other person. She's like, she's scared. She's like, what happens if one of us gets it? And how do we handle the store? And what does she do when she has to go home to her daughter? So there's a lot of fear out there. And, you know, Jim, if I had that opportunity, I'd be jumping at retirement right now.
I wish I qualified. I would have been all over it.
Me too.
Not me. I love my job.
I need 20 more years.
I do love my job. I do love my job, but it's, just the time,
Sounds like we all reminded that this is being recorded.
Oh,
Oh,
there
yeah.
you go.
We gotta,
Tom
gotta
Hoffa,
stay
thank you. I would
positive,
love working for you.
No, but I was gonna say, we haven't had layoffs at Clark, and I am tested every week as faculty and staff are, but it's myself and 2 students in the store. And right now, one of my students is in isolation because her roommate had a positive test.
Yep.
So, and actually I'm doing this while keeping an eye on the store to make sure nobody comes in. As you can see, I haven't leapt up to wait on anyone, so I
Right.
haven't had an issue with that. Although our traffic is mostly in the afternoons anyways, but it is tough. And before I came in this morning, I checked my test results and it was like, today of all days, I need to know before I get here if I have to come home or not. But if I get a positive test, whether it's false or not, we now have to take the 14 days,
Yep.
even if it
Have
is
you
a false.
Have you had a
Well-
lot of positives, false positives?
I think the roommate for my student employee was a false positive, but she's got to do the 14 and all her roommates have to do the 14 because of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because
It's all precaution.
my employee tested negative and her roommate tested positive. So we're but so if I have to close the store for 14 days, because there's no backup for me,
Right.
there's,
And that's what we've been hearing all around the country, right, Robin? Because on those state and regional calls, I mean, my
Yeah.
friend Debbie down at University of Mary Hardin Baylor in Texas, she said the same thing. She's like, if we have to close down, I don't know what we're going to do because there's still orders coming in. There's still students who need things. It's a struggle. And, for some of the larger stores, and I'm thinking like the San Diego States or where I used to work at NC State, they're working on slimmer staffs, but at least they've got enough people. They might have 10 or 15 people. They can start swapping out weeks and say, half of you are going to work this week and then the other half is next week. So if something happens where one of them gets sick, they can rotate. But stores like yours and Debbie's, I worry about what happens in those situations.
yeah. So it's like, I got 3 more weeks to get through and then we're closed for 3 months. And then I'll just be coming in to do orders and that'll be, I won't be tested. They're going to stop testing once the students go home and then they'll restart it when they return in February. So
Can you
Makes
work
sense.
remotely, Robin? Can you take your,
I can't take my product home.
No, I meant, like if you took your laptop home and you can,
I could do that, but a majority of what I'm doing is filling web orders, especially at the holidays, at early acceptance.
right, so
at
it's
back
like
to
the
school,
spirit
so it's
wear.
like, I don't have to come in every day, but I'm gonna have to come in 3 to 4 times a week, depending on what the order schedule is, how it's
Yeah.
coming in, so.
I've seen some of our customers who are directors of stores in the store for 12 hours packing and shipping sweatshirts and spirit wear,
Mhm.
So it's
So
that, and that's what it is.
The one store that I found interesting was Auburn. Our friends Katie and Rusty down there, they cut down their staff so much, no students, no part-timers, and I think they may have even cut in 1 or 2 full-time. They were down to 6 or 8 people total. And football season in the SEC, they actually had to still sell to fans because they were going to have football. They actually moved their books to MBS Direct, even though they've got a very strong independent store and handle books on their own, but they moved to MBS Direct. Rusty and I talked about it and he said he prayed about it and, sleepless nights, but he said that was the best decision in order to still serve the students. And then all the full-timers focused on general merchandise to help with the football games. And he said it's worked out okay, but he wants books back in the store.
Yeah, I was on a call with Katie just earlier this week, and she was sharing that information with a bunch of other stores. And yeah, I mean, that's what they had to do to get around to, work through this pandemic. And
Right.
it sounded like they were probably going to do it for the spring semester as well, but eventually they're hoping to bring that back in-house, that business.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We're still selling a tremendous amount of trade books. we're pretty busy that way. We're lucky too. We got the mail center integrated into our store last year. So we get the foot traffic, which is what I keep glancing at because I think people are coming my way, but we have to be open just because of mail center. And this year it's particularly nice because as I look out, boxes out there are stacked to the ceiling. Everybody's got something coming from Amazon. So unlike years past, where some students never made it to the store, I think this year every single student's come in at least a half a dozen times. You know, there's in the little tiny space they have out there, I've seen more futons shipped on a day. You know, some days the stuff comes all the way down to my office. There's somebody right now grabbing appears to be 2 refrigerators. So yeah, we still got foot traffic. Interestingly, we didn't lay off any full-time adults, but we weren't able to hire our full complement of students this year. That's where they kind of crimped the budget, was hiring student workers, but they preserved all of our jobs, which is awesome. But if one of
Good.
us leaves, they're not replacing us. So,
Hate to interrupt, but we need to end this call so we can start our next one. So if there are any
Good
other
to-
last final comments there?
I thank you, everybody. And, if Kevin and I could help you in any way at Pearson, please email us. We're happy to jump in.
thanks.
Have a
Even-
good one.
Okay.
See you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you.